together here, doing it live, Sunday at Mike's. Thank you so much for taking the time to show up, whether you're watching this live right now or you're going to catch this in the rerun. Rerun. Boy, I hope we don't go like that tonight. My tongue is already not working. If you watch this in the rerun guys, I really do appreciate it, and I want to let you know that you taking the time to do so is appreciated because time is a valuable thing, and spending a little bit of yours with me is a great thing. Um, Boy, what a week. This week reminds me of that line from A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And it's just one of those weeks where I kind of want to forget it, but then there were some great things. My brother is in town, and I just got back from having a dinner with him and my sister-in-law. So it's always good to see family. I haven't seen them in quite a while. It's been quite a while since I've seen them. So that's always cool. Ben, welcome. Sam. Well, appreciate you taking the time to show up to the live stream, Sam. Thank you so much. I think that this week was an interesting one. It had its pluses and minuses. Always one of the pluses, guys, is having the opportunity to spend some time with you on a Sunday evening. Sunbase, welcome, welcome. How are things in Cleveland? Cloudy Cleveland. Well, it's rainy here, but it's not as cold as it was this time last week. This last week we got into the minuses. One morning was -1, felt like -5, and I made the mistake of going out to walk my dog, and that without a cap on. I won't make that mistake again. My ears are just now starting to defrost. Yeah, Ben, it is great. It cheered me up a little bit because other than that, it was a pretty dismal week. Hey, welcome to you too. Thank you. Athens, Georgia in the house. Um, yeah, folks, it just was one of those weeks. But again, like I said, there's always the pleasure of having this time to spend with you guys and talk about things, shoot the breeze, chew the fat, so to speak. Now, as you know, I usually start out every show talking about something that I did around the studio or project wise or something like that, but I didn't have any projects this week that I was doing anything per se, which is probably one of the reasons why it was such a iffy week. It's always good when you've got other things to distract you. Maddie Two Hats in the house. Welcome. Shazam. I did, however, start gassing a little bit this week. It's really funny. Um, Frederick Rogers, all the way from Ireland. I hope the weather's doing a little bit better there than here tonight. We got ourselves a chilly one, but I've been kind of gassing. I want to start talking about a project. I want to talk about a guitar, and I kind of want to get a little feedback from you guys on it. As you know, I've been looking at moving away from Les Paul style guitars. Uh, this channel really caught its stride when I reviewed the Epiphone 1959 Les Paul, as well as owning a couple of Gibson Les Pauls and kind of comparing those. But just to keep things fresh and to keep things interesting, not just for the channel, but for myself, I started looking at Strat style guitars. I always played Telecasters. I always recorded with Telecasters. I was getting into recording with Les Pauls, but now I'm looking at Strats a bit, a lot, as you guys know recently. And there's this Yamaha Pacifica that I was looking at today, and I kind of want to let me see if I can get a decent image here to put up for you. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. So the Yamaha Pacifica, that's it. Have any of you guys heard anything about this guitar? I'm impressed with the specs on this. With a price on it being in the €250 range, you're getting an outer body and you're getting pretty decent electronics in it. It's very interesting that in the Les Paul market, really to find something decent, of a Les Paul style body, you really still are looking at the 400, beginning around the 350 to 400 euro range, or about $300-400 US. Whereas with Stratocasters and Telecasters, it's kind of a little bit of a different thing. You can start getting into some really good stuff cheaper than that. Yamaha Pacific Series is great across all the price points offered. The BB bases are great too. Thank you, Sunbase. I appreciate that on that. Outer body, really great electronics. A lot of hardtail versions, tremolo versions you can get for the same price. The interesting thing is it has a walnut neck on it. So I've never played, we know rosewood, we know Indian laurel, walnut. That's an interesting one. Walnut is kind of, it's a pretty hard wood. So I imagine for a fretboard, yeah, I could see that working, but I've never played it. So that is one of the things about it. Magic Two Hats. It's hard to find a bad Yamaha product. See, and that's the thing, and that's why I kind of want to get into this tonight, because you don't hear a lot of discussions about Yamahas. And again, the entry point for a decent guitar, a really decent keeper for the rest of your life if you wanted to, guitar, the entry level seems to be a lot more reasonable in the Telecaster and the Stratocaster, array of things. Les Pauls, again, like I said, it's a different story. But then of course their Tomon has kind of cracked the code on that as well with their Harley Benton. So there's that. Gosh, it just is the golden age. I keep saying this, but it really is a golden age for guitars. Imagine an outer body on this Yamaha Pacifica 112J. That's pretty neat at under €250. Again, I'm not so sure about that walnut neck, but the electronics again sound decent, and it's got great reviews in terms of the pickups. No need to do any swaps there, so you're really set. I suppose if it's a bolt-on neck, so you could put on any neck you want to. I'm sure you could dig up an alternate neck to that one, but just its bare bones is pretty decent. So yeah, I thought I would start out with this and talking about that, because I have two stories or two topics here that tie into this. Let's see what we got here. Denro says, all those Sweetwater say maple necks. Interesting. This one says on Tomon over here in Europe, it's walnut. It's walnut. And that wouldn't surprise me. As a matter of fact, that's a great lead-in to my first topic tonight. Actually, this was the lead-in, and this is the one of the main topics. Yeah, interesting. Walnut, dig that. I first saw on Reddit this week, a story from a Chinese website that somehow made its way over to Reddit about, and then it started popping up on all the other forums, My Les Paul forum, Gear Page, a couple other places, Strat forums. And it is the story of the Epiphone 1959. And so, thus, we will get into Epiphone Scams on Woods being the title of tonight's program, this live stream, because that is kind of the story that is sums this up in terms of what this story out of China is. Interesting enough, out of China. So grab your popcorn, guys. I'm going to sum this up real short. It's this thing has taken. If you haven't gotten on any of those forums that I just discussed, or if you haven't seen it on in the Reddit, the Epiphone subreddit, this is a topic that is just blown up, and it'll blow up a little bit more. Um, it basically it talks about a guy named Mr. Liu, a Chinese gentleman who brought a Epiphone 1959 from a reputable shop in China, in Shanghai, I believe. And yes, they do sell them inside the country of China as well. You can go to a music shop and buy one. It would be in terms of yuan to dollars, because you don't have the imports and the shipping and all that. It'd be, of course, a little bit cheaper, but still, for yuan, is not a cheap guitar. It's a very expensive guitar for most folks in China. Now, he obviously was a collector of Les Paul style guitars, because apparently he had a few of them, including a few actual Gibsons. And the story is that when he bought it, it didn't sound right to him. There was something that didn't sound right to the woods. The sound of the wood of this 1959 Epiphone. He felt that it didn't feel right, the grain didn't look right for what they said it was. Just to recap, a 59 is supposed to have a mahogany back body with a maple top that's usually made up of 3 or 4, 5, 6, even up to 7 pieces of maple, with a thin maple veneer, AAA flame veneer on top of that. Well, it's not veneer, it's actual AAA flame, but it's really thinly sliced and put on top of that. So he bought this and he felt there was something wrong with it. And by the way, how nerdy are those guys, those guitar nerds over in China, where he's playing it and says, this doesn't sound like the right wood. Sunbase. Yamaha, Liz, Walnut, Oak, Rosewood, Pacific on their website might be available. Yeah, there we go. And that's going to lead into what we're going to talk about here about woods and availability. Because I think that there may be something in this story because of that very thing. So he actually sent it off to a research center that studies, in Japanese, some Chinese and some Japanese characters overlap. And in Japanese, it reads China Lumber Research Center. However, it was pointed out on one of the forums that this person actually looked it up and saw that there is actually such a place. Interesting, all right. So he sent it off to this research to have the woods on it analyzed. And what he found out led him to actually suing Epiphone over in China in, I guess, the equivalent of a small claims court or some kind of court, in terms of disclosing what the body of the guitar that he bought, which was dated from 2022, I believe. Somewhere February 2022 is the date stamped on it. He sued them because it was not the woods that they advertised that it would be. Some kind of Asian mahogany, maple cap, maple neck. It actually turned out, according to the research center that they took it and they sampled the wood and they scanned it and whatnot, they said that it was birch and a wood called canarium. And I am not familiar with canarium. I understand that it is from a little cursory research that I did. I usually dig a little bit deeper. But time permitted me just to take a cursory look at canarium, and it is a wood that is used for making furniture. It is also common in I guess in making of instruments as well. The birch one, well, yeah, there's a lot of guitars that are made out of birch out there. But that is what was discovered. That was the the basic report that was filed. And Epiphone had to admit that this was true. They had to also list on in their Chinese version of their terms and conditions that they have the right to swap woods whenever they see fit. Now, the date of that guitar puts it somewhere around the time of the Koof, and because of the complete lockdown and shutdown of things, and how stuff was not coming in, things were not being delivered, things were not being shipped. So there was, and a lot of those factories were just flat out closed. It would stand to reason that there is if you were to look at it logically, it is possible that they started, hey, well, we don't have any more of that Asian mahogany. Let's get some of this canarium, let's get some birch, let's get whatever we have around here in order to fill these orders. And apparently, so, okay, to the validity of this, granted, I take it with a grain of salt. I take all those things with a grain of salt. But if I put on my thinking cap and do my best Sherlock Holmes impersonation in terms of character and start looking at it through those type of eyes, then if I say, okay, yeah, it was during the coup, so we know that things were shut down and maybe they were grabbing whatever they could. The place that he sent it to actually is a legit research center that does exactly that, as was stated, and as I looked into, somebody in the forums was kind enough to do the time to research it, and so that's a positive thing. And the fact that, again, we just started this episode tonight talking about those Yamaha Pacificas, which, by the way, I don't care whether it's walnut or whatever, it's still an awesome guitar, and I'm kind of gassing for it, especially at that price. I like that design. It's got a PRS-ish kind of design to it, or it's just a cool design to that. But there we have a situation where in some cases it's walnut, in some cases it's rosewood. Or maple necks, I'm sorry. But interesting enough, did he win the lawsuit? Yes, he did. So he forced them. The question was, did he win the lawsuit? Yes. So he forced them into have to list, again, at least in the Chinese terms and conditions for Epiphone, that they have the right, they reserve the right to substitute the woods for whatever. And even though it may be listed as one, the truth of it is it may not be. Now, again, to the validity of this, I'm going to have to say, adding all things up and summing up, it's got a strong, it passes a lot of smell tests. You guys know that one? It passes the smell test. So yeah, I'd have to say it could be true. Does it diminish that guitar in any way? Does it make that any less of a playable guitar? Does it make it any less of what it is? And the answer is no. For even at the price of what it is going for, $850 or whatever, I got mine a lot less than that. Right, yeah, I thought they did have to disclose alternate woods. Yeah, and that may, according to another vlogger on Reddit, or a person on Reddit post that I was reading, even in the English terms and conditions, it says the same. Is that they reserve the right to be able to switch materials depending upon availability. But again, it's just it leads to I believe it's valid at the end of the day. It was why I'll just end that thought. I think it passes the smell test, so I think there's something to it. But it leads to one to wonder, about a lot of things, in terms of these Epiphones and their price point. It opens up a can of worms because the prices on some of these signature models, which I would hope are actually the listed woods that they've said that they are, but they don't have to be. They don't have to be. You know, I find that fascinating. You mean that my Veil of Bees could quite possibly be, you know, Veil of Birch or Canarium? Yeah, there's that pot, and yet I still paid, you know, the price, assuming that that price has something to do with the wood, which obviously it doesn't. These things that make you go, hmm. I just throw that out there, guys, just to stir the pot a little bit. You may discuss as you please amongst yourselves. But yeah, he won the lawsuit. Patrick Jean LeBlanc Hardy says, hello from the States. Hello, sir. So nice to see you. Hit the like button and a good topic. Yeah, guys, thank you so much. Hit the like button. I appreciate that. 650 Thunderbirds in the house. Disclaimer, in order to continually improve the design and quality performance of our products and instruments to make use of the best material at all times. Yeah. Betty Two Hats, the old birch canary switcheroo trick. Canarium, man. Dig that, you know, it's like, you see like a piece of lumber with wings, you know. Epiphone reserves the right to change specific, yeah, there you go. And there it is, guys. Voila, as the French say. Voila. Dig that, man. Dig it. You know, like I said, so, and, you know, so I opened up with the Yamaha Pacifica because I dig that guitar. I think it's a great guitar, and I don't really care if it's made from hopium. You know, doesn't really matter to me, you know. It's just a cool design. They're telling me it's an outer body, but these days, you know, I would be more prone to trust a Yamaha in terms of their statement commitment than, to be honest, Epiphone. It's a prejudice that I have. You know, I love Yamaha guitars and as a company. But dig that, guys. Dig that one. So you don't really know what you're getting. And you can't really say that the price is tied into that either. This man, whether he got mine, you know, which I'm going to assume that my 59 was more, since it was one of the very first ones to roll out of the shelves, was actually what it was supposed to be. It was pre-Koof. But he paid the same price as he would have mine, and he got a completely different woods in terms of the build on that. Now, there was a reason behind that, of course, like I said. They weren't getting stuff in, so they had to grab whatever they had off the shelves. But there it is. And, you know, that kind of leads me to the second topic of tonight, ties into these other two. And I got into last week a little bit about Chipsons. And by the way, I made the statement last week that said that there is no legal ramifications from buying one. It's just when you go on to sell it on. No, actually there is. There's actually a pretty explicit law, especially in the States, that spells it out pretty nicely that no, you can't even really. Now, again, it's you know, it's like, the cops don't go after bookies because it's just low rent to them and they don't care. And they're not going to go after chips and buyers. Bookies and chips and buyers, you guys are safe from the long reach of the law. Patrick says, kind of like Cracker Jacks and I don't think they put a toy inside the box anymore. Flashback from my childhood. Yeah, Cracker Jacks, dig that. I used to love that stuff. It's one of those rare things where the prize used to be cool. In the 70s, in the late 60s and the 70s, when I was getting Cracker Jack, the prizes were actually pretty cool sometimes. But I actually like the taste of Cracker Jack. You know, I guess they were selling so much of it, it was a little fresher. I bet you if I had it now, I'd be like, this is not quite what I remember. But yeah, dig that. But you know, I, I have to say that if you are dealing with the chips and things, just be careful because of that. Because that is true. It actually, if you do buy it, it's still a legal thing to do. So I thought I would clarify that. But speaking of chipsons and what they're kind of, and I said the value in a chipson really is in that label on the top, that Gibson or that Fender or whatever it is, that fake label that they put on the top of it. That's where the value is. And why is that? Well, it's because Gibson as a company, I thought about that. And I kind of wanted to get into that. Why is it that the cachet of Gibson, you know, even makes their fakes of value? Well, that's a deep thing, you know, but it's true. When you got that fake, even though it's a fake, it still has a value to it. And why is that? Why do they have that kind of power to be able, as a company, in terms of there's this, you know, is it zeitgeist, is it zeitgeist out in the public sphere, you know? What hold do they have? What magical powers? Maybe it's those Hollywood veneer, you know what Hollywood is. Look it up. Um, but Gibson has hijacked the notion of what rock and rock is, you know. So I'm gonna put that premise out there. Patrick says, "Yep, I don't think my sweet tooth will agree with it anymore." Yeah, yeah. You know, the older you get, the less sweet things you want. It's a funny thing. You know, you can eat more sweets because you're older, but you just don't want them. Don Juan Campbell, welcome in the house. Welcome, welcome. Don Juan's in the house. Welcome. Uh, yeah, dig that. They've hijacked the notion of what rock is, you know. And rock, as I've said a lot of times before, is a genre that has been really written off for the last 2 decades. And we're seeing a turning point here where it's starting to come back in again. But it was companies like Gibson that were relying on the rock of the 60s and the 70s and even in the 80s and just regurgitating that for the last 20 years in order to keep that market alive, even though on the radio it didn't really exist. But if you were to, you know, look at the guitar market, you would think that things had never changed. They had that kind of power, you know. Much like Harley Davidson, again, hijacks the idea of rock. The Hard Rock Cafe, you know, again, has taken, you know, the zeitgeist of rock in and has become the epitome of what it is. But these are all corporate things. And by the way, in the case of the Gibsons and the Harley Davidsons, these are luxury items. So rock is a luxury thing. It's an aspirational thing. Well, it always was aspirational on the music side. But then somehow or another, it's been twisted into this aspirational lifestyle thing, regardless the music be damned, right? You know, because you got, you know, the lawyers with the glass case collections of Gibsons that'll never be played. You got the Harley Davidson, you know, dentist. My dentist had a Harley Davidson. So, you know, in Singapore. And just dig that. And the Gibson Custom Shop, also, you can throw in with that as well. These are all branches of the same kind of lifestyle, co-op, corporate BS kind of thing. And what are we talking about anyway? We're talking about, in the case of Gibson's, their copy of a copy. Their copy. It's a copy of a copy. Uh, it's a copy of a copy of a copy. The Greenie has been talked to death over the last month or more. Uh, it's interesting to me that originally the Greenie was just another production Les Paul that, because of the cheapness of Peter Green, not cheapness. Well, yeah, I guess there was a little bit of that, just the thriftiness of it, that the pickup got put in incorrectly, and suddenly that became a marketable thing. It was a complete goof, and it just happened to work out. But it was a goof that, until in the pre-internet age, was not widely known. I never heard. You had the out of phase pickup concept was not something that was really widely discussed. And I like to consider myself living in Los Angeles, California, that a place that there's a little bit of there's a few musicians there that if I never heard about it, until much later in life, then it really wasn't so much of a thing. But to look at it now, you would think that it was, the greatest thing since sliced cheese, you know? Patrick says, every time I hear about that guitar, I think of the Hulk, the Green Man. Every time I hear about that guitar, I can think of the Incredible Hulk theme. Da 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 da. That sad theme, because I just want to hang my head down and play that in the background, because that's how I feel about that freaking guitar. But there, it was just goof. It was just a goof, and somehow Fender has latched on to that and made that a sales point. But you got that out of phase, even in the Epiphone kids. It's made out of canarium. Maybe. You really don't know. But it's got the out of phase pickup. I'm sorry. That's just crazy to me, man. That cracks me up. Canarium. And they latched onto it. They made it a thing. And it just sickens me. It really does. It sickens me. Because it's like, it's nowhere near to the spirit of what rock and roll really was. It's a co-op. And, talk about substituting of woods. Now I'm somewhat like the original Epiphone guitars they're coming out with for some reasons. Yeah. Now I'm somewhat like the original. Now I somewhat like the original Epiphone guitars they're coming out with for some reason. Yeah. Give me a Stratotelli any day of the week, Don Juan says. Just easier on the body when gigging. I agree. And that's the other reason I switched over, because that the Stoner guitar, that thing is, even at 8.5 pounds or so, 8.2 pounds or whatever, it just, compared to that and that Squire Strat, it's night and day. I can, it's just, I have to tie it down with weights at night or it'll float away. It's so light. And the one that Fern's working on right now is even lighter. But I'm not knocking on, again, this has nothing to do with that 59. Now that 59 that Mr. Liu went to court in China over is still played the same. He never said that it didn't sound good. He never did say anything in terms of the quality or the frets or the woodwork or the binding. He never got into that. His thing purely was, what is it made out of? Which, sonically, if he hadn't done that, and all his life, you'd have thought it was mahogany, Anyway, yeah, it's a light one. That Essie, that's one of the great things about that. And it's Agatha. Agatha's not a light would. But that's why Fern and I are still not. Both of us are looking at it. We're still kind of giving it the stink eye. We're not sure if it's amethyst because it's too light for that. But it's kind of old, so it's kind of and it's been painted, so it's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, I digress. You know, speaking of woods, there you have a situation where Gibson with the copy of a copy, and what do I mean of that? I mean that every 1959 whatever edition, whether it's a Jimmy Page special edition, whether it's this Ross Thayer, whether it's God, you know, I could go through the list. You know the custom shop stuff, the customs choice, collector's choice editions. Let's just go down through the list. Those are all just copies of the original one, and the original one they can't really duplicate that because of the CITES treaties. Those things had Brazilian rosewood on. They came out with, of course they did. They found some old Brazil. Oh, we've got a little stash over here, and we're gonna put out a special edition of this, so you can really almost kind of sort of be closer to what you know what Joe Bonamassa owns several of. And you can pay $20,000, $30,000 for the pleasure of that, but it's still a copy of a copy. And I find it very interesting that only outside of those special edition Brazilian rosewood neck fretboard editions, really all the rest of them are not, and so therefore it really is a copy of a copy, and it's not even a good copy. In that regard, because you know if you want to have it like the original in terms of that Brazilian rosewood, you know, guess what? So this co-opting and then putting these tiers on it, custom shops, limited edition artists, USA, and then now Epiphone artists, you know, putting these tiers on it and making it aspirational really has screwed the pooch in terms of what this was really about in the first place. And we've lapped it up. So much so that, again, you know, this is a substitution of wood. What's the difference between a walnut neck on that Yamaha Pacifica or, you know, whatever neck you have on a Gibson Custom Shop? It's still neither one of them. You know, well, I would say is what. In other words, it's still substituting stuff. It's not the real deal. You know, neither one of them are correct, really. Correct. And what is correct? Again, why would we even care about correct? If it sounds good and plays good, you know, and if that's the case, maybe we could look at guitars a little bit differently. Maybe we could start looking at them the way that we really should in terms of, does this one feel right? You know, this Strat feels better to me than the Les Paul. Does it sound right? You know, hey, you know what? These 20-year-old ceramic pickups aren't actually that bad. I went out and bought a pair of Alnico 5 pickups, put them in the Strat. It lasted 10 minutes. The minute I get that, I immediately swapped the ceramics right back in again. Those Alnico 5s are on sale on my Reverb site. But it had none of that had anything to do with the wood of that guitar, or whether it was right or not, or whether, you know, it had to do with the sound. You know, and that's what I was focusing on. So it's funny to me, it's kind of hilarious to me. This Mr. Liu lawsuit over in China. First of all, again, like I was kind of alluding there to, how geeky, man, are these guys over in China on the boards? Because this is on a message board. So this is with 15,000 people, by the way, that have seen this thread on this Chinese board, and to date. according to the last thing that I read, and discussing this, and boy, that's that level of nerdiness and attention shows you that that kind of thinking or that kind of thought. See, again, we're all human. And we all look, whether we're Chinese, Japanese, American, Swiss, whatever, South African, whatever, African American, whatever. We all are going to look at this thing, pretty much from certain points of view. And on this message board, they're just tripping off the fact that, that not so much, again, whether the guitar sounds good or not, but that these corporations are basically kind of screwing us over. On Chinese discussion groups, I talked about, I believe once, about those vacuum cleaners, those ones that go around your house, robot vacs. And there are discussion groups that will tear into the companies that make those instantaneously. And from a consumer standpoint, the Chinese are really, really, really super on it in terms of, I will say that as a truth, in terms of consumer watchdogs, kind of looking out at things and digging a little bit deeper. How many American cats or Japanese cats or other cats would have taken the time to send their 59 in to have it inspected like that, to have it looked at like that? Who would actually do that? But these guys did. This guy did. So that's an interesting thing too, to me, that came out of this, is that they're holding these companies to a higher standard than we are. Because I think the aspirational Gibson thing, Harley Davidson thing, as I was saying, all Hard Rock Cafe thing, Gibson Custom Shop, these are all this aspirational stuff. I think that it doesn't penetrate as strongly in some countries as it does in others. And so, therefore, and since in the West we're oversaturated with it, I think that here we have a case where these guys were like, this one doesn't pass the smell test with us, and we're going to be the ones to really, call attention to this and look at this a little bit deeper, because we're not caught up in the corporate, mumbo jumbo. Hey, we're really looking at this in terms of, you said it was this, and it turns out, it seems to me that that's not what it is. And I'm not just going to sit back and go, oh, well, maybe next time they'll give me the right woods. They kind of said, yeah, I don't know if we like this, guys. We don't know if this is too cool. So dig that. That's another thing that came out of this. So all around it, and again, it opens up the can of worms in terms of what really is, a Les Paul 59 anyway. And if you look at it in terms of a vintage body style, then does it really matter, fill in the blanks, whatever that body is going to be made out of? There's that. So then again, that gets to price. Why are we paying so much for some of these things? See, it opens up, and if it's not the wood that it's supposed to be, then why are we paying so much? It breaks that spell. It breaks that corporate spell. It really makes you look at something a little bit differently. And this story out of China, interestingly enough, has me looking at things tonight, at least, I'll share with you guys, a little bit differently. It's funny to me. It's funny with Strats. Yeah, a lot of people want to have an older body, but to be frank with you, I just find that Strats, it's just not as a thing as it is with Les Pauls. Les Paul is what? It's mahogany, rosewood, maple. So there's a formula there, but Strats, it's a little loosey-goosey with the formula. I like that a lot better. I do. I do. I like that a lot better. And I feel with a Strat you can experiment. I told you I saw a metal Strat in Japan. The guy had made a Strat out of metal. And if you go back in my video where I went to Japan and went to Tishigaki, there's a video of that. It has a ruby inlay on it. It was like a $20,000 guitar. But again, the flexibility is I've seen them made out of stone. It's interesting to me. It's a lot more fun in the Strat world. And again, I'm a little late to the game, as you know. But and again, configurations in terms of what you can do with your pickups. You can go single, 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 or H single. So there's just so many different ways that you can configure them. They're a lot more fun to play with. This Les Paul thing, man, has got a lot of, it's got a lot of weird mojo on it, and it's because of Gibson. It's because of that hijacking. It's because of the muddy of the water. It's because of, well, every year we're just getting a little bit closer, guys, to the original thing. We get the dyes right, and you know what? We source the right magnets finally, and every year, but it's going to cost you a little bit more. And we got tiers, by the way. And by the way, it's all aspirational. And by the way, it's all luxury items anyway. Getting back to what we really should be, breaking the spell of that. We don't need those luxury. Hey, great, you got these luxury items that you're marketing as being the spirit of rock and roll. You can have it if it works for you, but that's not the criteria. My criteria, if it happens to be a cool guitar and it sounds great, then fantastic, I'll buy it. I've bought many of them, many Gibsons. But I'm not looking in terms of it somehow making me feel like I'm rock and roll. No, it's the music. It comes from here out, not from here in. Andrew 357, can you give a shout out to my daughter Lana, who's doing her art homework while I listen to you? Hey Lana, shout out to you and your father there spending time together. That's so nice. That's so nice. Thank you guys for listening in. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. Yeah, guys. It's funny stuff. It's hilarious. It really just makes you sit back and really care about what's really important in that equation. And these are times for retailers and for everyone. These are trying times. Is what I'm trying to say. Sales are through the toilet. They are. They have gone to the toilet. They really have. They are not moving. Things are not moving, and it gets harder and harder to even justify buying more guitars anyway, because there's such a flood of them out there, and we're spoiled for choices. And maybe sometimes we have to step back and say, I'm good. Now, I'm trying to say that to myself with this Yamaha Pacifica because I don't need it. But at 249 euros, it's like, why wouldn't I at least want to try it? It's at a price. It's priced at what I think any decent, good guitar that I would, if from what I understand, I could gig with this thing, I could record with the thing. It's a great guitar at 250, and why would I spend more? So there's that. Don't judge me. We wouldn't judge you, Patrick. We don't judge here. Don't judge me. I came across an old Adam Levine 222 first act guitar with 2 humbucker pickups for $25. They wanted $75, but those pickups sound good and very hot somewhat. You got a good deal. Not going to judge you. Hey, it's funny you were talking about that. I was thinking about my Super Distortions. I got this one guitar. It's called what was that? It was a Woodburn. I got an old Woodburn guitar that had 70s DiMarzios in it, and I'm missing those pickups. You often have those moments where you miss things or you regret selling things. And in my case, it's not really guitars, it's pickups. I've had some great pickups that I really regret selling. Uh, and yeah, I was thinking about Super DiMargio's the other day. So interesting. First that guitar with two humbucker pickups. Well, $25. There you go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. um, so yeah, guys, there's that. Where are we at? Okay. Um, you know, um, speaking of guitars and pickups and equipment and stuff like that, um, I alluded to the fact that this last album that I recorded on Spot, you can find it on, uh, oh my gosh, that's not good. Bandcamp, sorry guys, had a little brain fart there. You can find it on Bandcamp, my album Asanoki, Ants in the Pantry. And I said that was my swan song, that was my last album. And I never really got into why that was. I was listening to Paul Stanley from Kiss. Now, this is going to come to a great surprise to a lot of you out there, but I happen to be a big fan of Kiss and Paul Stanley in particular. Um, I wrote a song called Perfectly Lucky on my last album, the one before this one, that on the Asanoki band album, Asanoki album. Um, that you can find on this channel. So you can find this song called Perfectly Lucky, where I was kind of channeling my inner Paul Stanley and writing style, singing and playing and things like that. And he was talking to a reviewer recently about why is it that he hasn't put out any music recently. Why he hasn't recorded an album. The Kiss, as you know, just finished up their farewell tour. Um, you know, color me skeptical, but I heard the Rolling Stones farewell tour so many times in the last 50 years, literally in the last 50 years, that I don't believe a word of it. It's a farewell until it's not, and that's really the way it is. Um, talk about the boy who cried wolf. Boy, man, these rock bands talk about this is our farewell tour. It's like, it's like, stop. You just want to say to them, guys, please stop. Go on tour, enjoy yourself. We'll see you next year. You know it, I know it, your manager knows it, your bookie knows it. So anyway, but Paul said I respect them because those guys again. That's rock and roll, man. To me, and I grew up with Kiss. I told you that stupid special they had on ABC TV, The Phantom of the Park. If any of you guys haven't seen that, go on YouTube, check it out. Well, you're on YouTube, but check it out here on YouTube. The Phantom of the Park came out in '76. They shot it out at Magic Mountain out in Valencia, California, and it was like the talk of the school when I was, what was that, seventh grade, eighth grade? Did you see that Kish thing? Like, yeah, I saw it. Watching it in, retrospect is god awful, but I saw it in real time. But I've always had a thing for them. But he said, in regards to recording, he said, why? He said, why should I do it? He said, you pour your heart into something, and all you get when you're done is a cursory nod. And he said that, and he says that my last album, which was 10 years ago, he was saying, I wrote probably, he said, one of my best songs. Now this is Paul Stanley, you know, he wrote a lot of those, you know, him and Gene Simmons wrote a lot of that stuff, and with really with him being a strong primary writer in that. So when he says it was one of his best tunes, you know, you gotta believe that it really was. But again, because they have a legacy from this time period in this magical, mystical thing that we call the era of rock, he's kind of locked into that. And that's forever going to, which is not a bad thing. It's the reason why they can go out on friggin' tour. You know, people want to hear the hits. They don't want to hear the new stuff too much. You have to be a diehard, which is his point. Only the diehard fans are willing to accept anything new. Most folks have already got their idea of what it is that I am. And I found that amazing. I found that depressing. Because here's a man that I'm quite sure has a lot more to say musically, for sure. I'm sure, even at his age, he has things that he wants to say musically, but he just feels, why put my heart into it? What you do, when you put an album together, you really, as some of you know, you really pour your heart into it, if you're really being sincere about it. If you're not trying to, if you're trying to write something that has legs to it, or something of substance, you're really going to put substance. If you're a person of substance, then you put it in. Even there's some folks, they dig substance somehow or not when they write. And it's quite an experience, and it's quite a lot of things involved in writing and putting yourself mentally in a place that you can write, and all the things that come with composing. And then just to get a cursory nod when you're done with that, it can be, a thing that can really make you not feel so great. And there does come a time, however, when you do throw in the towel. And I think I got to that point myself. I think that, not that I've said all that I want to say musically, but I think that the cursory nod of it really is something that kind of it's not that I'm saying that it's not something appreciated. There's a lot of guys who bought my album, and you've liked it. You've told me. I've had messages from other people who bought it, and it did well. But I just feel that sometimes for what I put into it, I think I've got to the point where it takes so much out of me that I don't want to put energy like that out anymore. I don't want to go through what it takes in order to record, especially when you're playing all the instruments, writing all the music, and performing and playing all the instruments. It's quite a thing to do, and I'm thankful that I have the ability to do it. It is a gift that comes from God, and I'm thankful for it. But I agree with Paul Stanley. He said that, and that hit a nerve with me. I was like, you know what? I can feel this guy. I feel what he's saying. And there just comes a time when you just want to put a pin in it. But what do you do with, since I'm not going to record anymore, then that puts me in the position of looking around. I'm like, well, I don't need this anymore. I don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. You start to say, let's sweep all this away. So I am moving recording wise. I've gotten rid of my hardcore recording equipment. I've gotten rid of most of it since I finished the album, and the rest of it is going to go as well. And I won't be recording anymore. I won't be doing any kind of recording of that nature anymore. I've just made that decision. Now, this means, however, that that energy, creative energy, has to go somewhere. So, from the sales of the stuff that I had to move on, then I can invest in things that are pointing me in a different artistic direction. And I am thankful to have a YouTube channel where I can express myself through this medium, through the live stream with you guys. It is a great outlet for me, and I like these little intellectual trips that we take. And I like the interaction here as well, a great deal. And it has brought me great pleasure, and it has actually made the sting of knowing that I won't be doing any more of the recording anymore, writing and recording. I'll still write, but just for my. When things come up, of course I'm going to put it down, but no serious recording anymore. To have this outlet here, it was such a nice thing to be able to move in, and it was already there, but it was such a nice place to be able to put that energy at. I don't feel bad about the not writing anymore. And I want to say that I had mentioned that I wasn't going to be recording anymore and that I wouldn't be doing any more of that kind of work. Certainly, my days of touring or playing live actually, depending upon certain things, I would like to see a little bit of that to start up again. Believe it or not, I've been considering putting together a trio, to be honest with you, and finding a place to rehearse that. So not recording, but going through all. I've got 5 or 6 albums, or of material that I can go through just on my own. I've got 3.5, 4 hours of recorded. If you go on between Spotify and Bandcamp, I've got about 3.5 hours of song. You could listen to all my songs. It would take you 3.5 hours to get through my albums, or more, almost 4 hours. Yeah. So I have material. There's no shortage of material, but and that's why I invested in another amp, the that Fender Champ, because that thing with the new speaker that I put in it, that'll that'll do, that'll do. Even a Fender Champ, you think it was a solid state, but when I use my ABY splitter, I go between that and the Laney, and I'm doing two mono amps running at the same time, two basically two by 12s running, and I blend them. Boy, it'll do. So in my pedal board, which is sitting right here, I was doing a little work on it. Yeah, I've been kind of gravitating away from the recording thing into the live thing, to be honest with you. It's something that I aspire to do. So, that's funny. I worry about Paul Stanley if he's really not going to be doing the live. He's not doing the recording thing anymore, and he's not doing the live thing anymore. What is he planning on doing with his that artistic energy, especially again at his age where, he still has it in him to do so. So it's not like he's a complete burnout. Me myself, like I said, I'm actually saying, hey, maybe playing, live would be a good thing, performing. So I'm gearing towards that. So it's funny. My purchases, my investments, or even things I'm not investing in, those are things that are leading more towards that direction. So there's always something. You should always put something in front of you to look forward to. You should always have something. Hey, I always wanted to do this. I wanted to take up this. Or, hey, I always wanted to build my own this. Or, hey, I want to get back. Well, in my case, I gigged continuously every day with only 2 Sundays a month off for about 5 years total. Yeah, true story. That's why I got to be a really good keyboard player, because I can go up on stage and I can knock out stuff real quick. And my guitar chops picked up because of just day after day after day. And then I took a break from it and then got back into it in 2010 to 2013 with my band Asanoki in Japan. And now here's 10 years later, and I'm thinking about taking it up again, forming a new Asanoki. So, again, like I said, always have something to look forward to. I wanted to ask you, how are you feeling, and how was the visit with your brother and his wife? Well, thank you for remembering that, Don Juan. My brother is here, actually. He's literally, there's a Marriott 5-minute walk from here, because I live in a pretty central part of town. I'm very lucky. But there's a Marriott 5 minutes from him where he's staying at, and both my sister-in-law. So they are here. Tomorrow we are going to go out and do some things together. My health, you can tell that I've been getting thinner and thinner and thinner. I can't even hide that from you guys. You can just go back, a year ago, and you can see that I'm kind of sort of wasting away a little bit. It is worrisome, but it doesn't deter me from, again, having plans, and reevaluating, and that's the other reason you want to have things to look forward to, because you kind of want to have things to look forward to. It helps in the mental health department. So, I'm all right, guys. Again, I'm not. I have lived an extraordinary life. You I have done things and seen things and been places that, quite frankly, even I am astounded. Kid from Windsor Hills, California, and the things that I can sit here in my place in Amsterdam, and my brother can come visit me while he's going around doing his thing in Europe. I mean, the McWilliams boys did all right. So I have no complaints about anything. I really don't. I don't. So, and I'm not sorry about anything. I'm not sorry for myself, to be sure. Never, to be sure. Nothing to be sorry about. But I do appreciate you guys supporting me. I appreciate you taking the time to listen in. If you haven't bought the album, go to Bandcamp, take a listen to it. If you like it, buy a copy of it. Hopefully, I will be performing it next year. We'll see. I would love to do that. But every week, I want to thank you guys for showing up and for listening in and supporting. Don Juan Campbell, it's good to have things to look forward to and plan out goals. I'm loving this trio idea you're thinking of forming. I can't wait to see more vids of the live gigs. Yeah, and that's another thing. YouTube, boy, oh boy. I just came out with a video yesterday, of my top 5 picks for stocking stuffers under $80. Now, every year, this time of year, I do the same kind of video. I do a top 5 picks. And generally, a video like that, it takes a little while to get going, but I will have a few hundred views within a few days. This one this year, I haven't even got 50 views on it. It is the worst performing video that I've had on my channel in a long time. Thank you, Patrick. So I'm wondering, was it the theme of it? Because I thought it was pretty informative. Is it that just people were just like, nah, I'm not feeling buying anything. I don't want to even hear about spending there. I don't know. I don't know if I was a little tone deaf with that one or not. The reason I kept it under $80 was specifically for that reason. I wanted to say, hey, look, there's some cool things out there that are, that you don't have to, completely burn the piggy bank out to get uh, for yourself or for your musician friends. But boy, that video is just doing dismal. It's just, and it's like, and um, I I want to really do the review of this, but of this right here. But I'm waiting for Fern because I want to do it with Fern. Maybe that'll be a little bit more interesting. But it's funny to me. It's kind of funny. So if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. But yeah, it's dismal this week in terms of my views. I don't know why. Just thought I would throw that out there. Come on, the YouTube algorithm has been off and the notification hasn't been good on YouTube lately. Yeah, give it time. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I know, guys. All right, I'm actually going to cut it short tonight because my phone is telling me my battery is dying, and that is a rare thing. I thought I had this on a charger, but it's telling me that I do not. So we have 14 people watching, 14 likes, and I think that is always a good time to stop while you're ahead. I think it was an interesting discussion. It's certainly a funny way. I cracked myself up actually tonight. I laughed pretty good. This canarium and birch and these woods, this substitution of woods things, and it just cracks me up, guys. It just makes me chuckle. I hope you got a laugh out of it too. And until the next one, you guys take care. I will see you. Bye.